Made up of vocalist Majid Maskati and producer Jordan Ullman, together they're Majid Jordan. They're great artists and they have a great story too. The two met at Majid's surprise birthday party where Jordan was a friends plus one. This introduction and a second meeting in the coming months would change their lives forever. Facing life and career uncertainty, Majid was set to return home to Bahrain after finishing his commerce degree at the University of Toronto. He never thought about becoming a musician and instead thought he was destined to work in a cubicle. When he first came to Toronto, he learned a few guitar chords for fun as a side interest, and soon after took this talent to write funny, original birthday songs for his friends, where his main aim was just to make them laugh. After he had made about 10 songs, his friends said that he had basically made an album of birthday songs and that he should try performing at some open mic bars. He performed an original song at the Cat's Eye, a Victoria College bar, which went well, and he found it uniquely fulfilling to perform and see that reaction from people. It was really only after this moment that Majid considered seriously making his own music. This led to him releasing 5 songs on his MySpace. At this point, he was in his second year of college, and this is where he left his musical journey for now. Instead, focusing all of his time and effort on his studies and ensuring that he wouldn't return to Bahrain as someone who would have been deemed a failure. It wasn't until 2 years later, in his final year of school, that he met Jordan and saw an opportunity to work with the producer and make a small project to take home and show his friends. There wasn't any intention to pursue music after this, and in fact, the alias they used, Good People, and their online anonymity were intended because Majid feared the repercussions of a future employer finding his music online and impacting his chances of being hired. On the other side of the duo, Jordan came from a musical household and was classically trained. He grew up in Markham, a suburb of the Greater Toronto area. From an early age, he knew he wanted to make music, and by the time he met Majid, he was already DJing at local spots under the name Class Act. He was mainly creating mashups of EDM tracks, house, and other electronic types of music. And they quickly bonded at Majid's birthday party over their love of a similar sound and music, from French disco, house, R&B, and UK dub. They opened up YouTube and went back and forth sharing songs. Fast forward a couple of months and they meet again on the street of U of T and reignite their talks of making music together. The very next day, Majid goes over to Jordan's dorm room after class and they make Hold Tight and Chill Pad Deluxe. 2 or 3 months later, Afterhours was complete, and the night Majid went back to Bahrain, Jordan uploaded the project onto SoundCloud. On Majid's first day back in Bahrain, he received an email from Noel 40 Shabib, Drake's longtime collaborator, friend, and one of the main men behind OVO Sound. And their lives would never be the same. They both come from a humble background of making music for nothing more than passion and putting out positivity. The sincerity and modest approach to creating and releasing art and soundtracking people's lives is something that they always carry with them. Their sudden induction into the professional music scene is one of many life-changing 24-hour moments in their story, which illustrates a genuine through line of 2 people with no aim of becoming famous, but instead 2 friends who are happy to remain anonymous and let their music do the talking. The mixtape that started it all. Afterhours is the project that got them discovered by 40, in the studio with Drake, and eventually signed to OVO Sound. Thanks to a mutual friend introducing them to one another and the duo meeting again months later, their friendship started and this mixtape was made and released on SoundCloud under their name at the time, Good People. With 8 tracks, this fun and experimental project was made out of necessity as Majid wanted to bring a memento home and urgency as he was returning home to Bahrain later that year. Despite these challenges, the project took 2 to 3 months to finish and it retained a consistent sound and aesthetic that they bonded over. Afterhours covered various topics and musical influences, from questioning a dog's love to socio-political commentaries. These tracks were written and created with limited life and creative experience, which is totally expected. Majid was 21 and Jordan was 17, but despite their age, 2 fan favourite cult classics were created on the very first day they worked together, Chill Pad Deluxe and Hold Tight, which says everything that needs to be said about their creative partnership. This instant connection and authentic approach to making music that feels good and promotes positivity, at least sonically, speaks to their friendship and is a hallmark feature of their artistry and creative process that they've carried through their entire career. Jordan described their immediate bond and collaboration as super refreshing and that they just clicked. It was a perfect coming together moment for both of them, who were not only learning more about each other as they worked on the mixtape, but they were also learning about their musical interests and discovering what music they really wanted to make. It's rare to find this sort of friendship and have it turn into a partnership, and to have it happen so organically. But it's even rarer for all of this to occur and for lives to change over such a brief period of time. Majid Jordan have never wanted to be boxed into a singular genre, and their worldly and eclectic taste in music has always shined through in their records. Afterhours sets the scene with a clear electronic focus that signals the start of what they would call dream funk R&B or R&E. Fitting with this sound, most records feature shorter verses and frequently repeated choruses and hooks. This is something that's relatively consistent across their discography, but it's particularly emphasized in this first mixtape. I think an interesting element of Afterhours was its spontaneity. Going back to that first session they had, just based on their previous conversations and the little information Jordan had to work with, he prepared a track he thought Majid might like, and it was a perfect fit, which made them both quickly realize that they wanted to make more music together. And I mean, in addition to that, as I've mentioned, 2 tracks were made on that first day, and that speaks volumes about their ability to work on the fly and let their conversation and connections spur their creative momentum. This is a fundamental process for them, and it's been really effective in capturing their innate emotions and thoughts that they can release naturally when making their music. Afterhours will always serve as a pivotal landmark in Majid Jordan's history, and the mixture of luck, talent, and timing that went into its creation would change their lives and take them beyond their wildest dreams. To set the scene, Majid Jordan have been in OVO bootcamp for over a year, learning behind the scenes from greats like 40 and Drake, collaborating with others like 1985 and Party Next Door, and overall just getting practical experience in a studio which was a completely new environment for them. But perhaps most notably, and what springboarded them into releasing this mixtape, was their involvement in creating the first iteration or demo of Hold On We're Going Home and the hit that it would be. This meant that their whirlwind of an introduction to the music scene had barely slowed down. Having their lives completely changed over the past year, a place like this defines and timestamps their unique situation personally. However, it's still made intentionally ambiguous and open to interpretation for their listeners to enjoy and receive an insight into the world and sound of deeply underground artists who weren't preparing an album but featured on a huge hit single. While this mixtape only featured 5 songs, its generally longer song length is comparable to that of Afterhours, and most definitely felt like their breakthrough moment as individual artists who followed up their previous collaborative hit with a hit of their own in Her. Much like Afterhours, the verses are terse, aiming to deliver abstract feelings and settings that are partnered with catchy hooks and rhythmic production. This is a pretty fitting way to describe, at the very least, the first evolution and refinement of Majid Jordan's R&E sound, which is consistent in a place like this. Understandably, with their first release as Majid Jordan and being under the OVO Sound label, there seems to be a more disciplined sonic focus to what we heard in Afterhours as they continue to hone their sound and discover exactly what type of music they want to make. During this time of learning and practicing and under the tutelage of Noah 40 Shabib, a place like this offers the perfect introduction to prospective fans by showcasing exactly what they have in store. True to projection, in their third release and their first album, the duo self-titled Majid Jordan continues to hone their R&E sound and adds another dimension to their artistic world. Sonically, they continue to push and evolve the sound that they've become known for, remaining consistent and ensuring that fans are getting what they've signed up for. There are a few songs that stand as something unique from a place like this, but are a little reminiscent of the lesser-known Afterhours EP. Make It Work, Shake Shake Shake, and Warm are those to me. Majid's slow and dry vocals slicing through Jordan's produced soundscape remind me of that homebrewed natural collaboration of their first mixtape that was raw but was made with a lot of movement and stylistic purpose. Compared to a place like this, the largest difference is the upbeat tempo and cheerful electronic bounce that's really embraced on the majority of tracks in the project. The honest and unfiltered lyrics make their music as relatable as possible, but the production is fantastical and wonderful. It's a unique world that drives their creative purpose of uplifting others, spreading positivity, and making music that inspires people. In the rollout of this project, Jordan talked about wanting to make a real album, which has a clear mood and setting. The self-titled has that, and according to him, it's very visual and colourful that prides itself on its self-reflective theme. They wanted to make music that people could put headphones in and listen to, zone out, take it in, sit with the music, and think about what's being said. Something both Majid and Jordan talked about was how this album was establishing their first steps in the world that they're trying to craft and show us. There's the weight of pressure that comes from the anticipation of that debut album. You only get one, and this was their chance to introduce people to their world, which would be added to with each release. Due to the sacred nature of a debut album, the duo wanted the project to be a genuine reflection of themselves, and they avoided chasing features for this reason. Most of the time, their collaborative creative process is built on the authentic friendship that Majid and Jordan share, which allows them to easily translate conversations into ideas, into records. Importantly, they've talked about how this process differed on the self-titled release, where they worked with two other producers on a handful of records during a visit to LA, Alangelo and 1985 specifically. While they're not opposed to collaborations, they feel that it's only worth it if it's genuinely wanted by all parties. Because to them, to collaborate is to work together to create a piece of art, not a publicity stunt. I feel as though the Drake feature here is very fitting in what would be chapter 1 of Majid Jordan's album anthology, given how crucial he and OVO were in allowing them to chase their passion professionally. Taking into account the time between a place like this and the years of preparation since they were signed and this debut album, they had ample time to learn about the industry and to gain new experiences that could shape and develop their sound. They've spoken about how this project was their first attempt at marrying all the different creative identities that Majid and Jordan bring to their partnership and that they've developed over this time. For them, creating their music and their art is very much a holistic process that's a combination of achieving a desired visual with a selected sound, and having this fusion build and shape a world that represents Majid Jordan. They try to strike a balance and illustrate their visual aesthetic in the limited way they can through album artwork, but it's largely communicated through their music. And this is something that they aim to establish themselves as, communicators through music. This album is a true introduction to them as artists, yes, but also as people. The title Majid Jordan says exactly that. Showcasing the duo on the artwork is maybe a reference to the confusion of them being just one person. They want everybody to know their name and that their artistry takes two. Adding on to this, they want it to be a genuine introduction, just as their partnership is, and to adequately express the beginning of their artistic world, which is communicated to listeners through sound and music. Majid Jordan's music has long been described as perfect for a late night drive. It's in their second studio album, The Space Between, that they truly embrace this label. We're welcomed by an intro that gears us up as we merge into the highway for a 49-minute long drive and go through our emotions. The engine gains speed and the beat kicks in, which begins the journey into the space between. When asked about how Jordan's approach changed on the production side, he talked about not using any samples and making everything from scratch, but also how his maturity has allowed him to look past trends and not be influenced by a hot sound, and instead apply his efforts into making something that will be great now and in 10 years. He also notes that he looked at the album as a 50-minute song. None of the tracks should be skipped, and in fact, the entire album is supposed to be seamless. This is the most notable difference that stands out here from Majid Jordan's previous work. The use of transitions and how it flows from one song to another, leaving you unsure as to when one song finishes and another begins. Jordan has talked about challenging himself to see how long he can go making a beat without running out of ideas and having it flow together. And his attempt at this was released on SoundCloud as a 21-minute long mix. The mix is titled the same symbol that features on the artwork of The Space Between, which also seems to be their visual representation of the space between. And to me, this links these two pieces of work as a common artistic vision that places them in the same space between universe, that also seems to be a play on their branded logo. The interesting thing is that the mix was actually uploaded before they had even released their self-titled debut album, which shows that this idea was something that they've had in their mind for a while. It should be noted that this album wasn't made in that same one-take fashion, but the idea of transitioning and making it flow and exist together in a seamless universe was something that was clearly of interest to them. On the topic of flowing, I feel like this is a good time to mention a recurring intent within Majid Jordan's music that's fully embraced with The Space Between. Even prior to this release and the clear driving illusions it presents, their music had long been labelled late night drive music, which could be seen as boxing them in a particular sound. But as young artists trying to make their way, and there being artful merit to that claim, this idea is most explicitly addressed in this project. Majid and Jordan have both talked about the significance of vehicles and more broadly being in motion, and how this relates to their music consumption, inspires them to create the music they make, and adds another element to whatever you're doing and the music that you're listening to. Whether you're hyping yourself up for a run, enjoying the sights while on a road trip, or driving aimlessly in your feelings, music goes hand in hand with motion. In Majid Jordan's case, they've talked about the fact that most of the time they listen to music, it's in the car, and often it's with no destination. Finally, sonically, I just wanted to touch on the generally upbeat and catchy rhythm that threads through the majority of the project. In Majid Jordan fashion, the R&E sound booms and often creates that juxtaposition with the light and honest lyrics that come from a place of vulnerability and openness. I think this honesty, vulnerability, and shameless expression of how Majid feels is a prominent theme of this project. And it marks the first time there's been a largely consistent subject matter aside from broader matters of love. Similar to a place like this, the space between is a detailed illustration of a narrative world they've painted. There's a clear sonic and conceptual through line that they've maintained as they continue adding to their catalogue of artistic worlds. A lot of things happened in the 4-year hiatus between Majid Jordan albums. Their second world tour, this time for the space between, kept them busy in 2017 and 18, taking them everywhere from Paris to Manama. As their tour concluded, they took some time off and were relatively quiet, only releasing a handful of singles and features that had them work with artists like Khalid and Zoo. As more time passed, fans became impatient, anticipating a new and long-awaited album from the duo, and then the pandemic happened, which changed everything for everyone. It forced everybody to think about their lives and take the time to contemplate their futures. From Majid Jordan's perspective, it definitely threw a spanner in the works of their imminent album rollout and plans. Actually, in their last interview before the pandemic, both Majid and Jordan confirmed that this next project was, in their words, definitely coming out in 2020, for sure. It's not going to be 2021, I'll tell you that. And obviously everything changed, but it does make you wonder how much of a potential album was scrapped, changed, or remade during the space between those comments and its actual release. 3 key influences shaped Wildest Dreams and their 5th addition to the universe of Majid Jordan. For starters, something consistent with Majid Jordan's sonic intention since their earliest collaboration was to make feel-good music that spreads positivity and good vibes. They saw it as their responsibility as musicians and people coming out of the darkness of the pandemic to remind people what it felt like to dance and have music take some of your troubles away. In line with this goal, there also came the natural ambition of musicians to have more people hear their art and grow a larger fan base that they could connect with and share what they're capable of creating. In the build-up to the album, once again prior to the pandemic, they noted that this project might disappoint some of their hardcore fans who would oppose a new sound, but in their hopes of growing and reaching more people, they felt like they needed to experiment with a new sound that could be described as a little bit more radio ready and taking more influence from pop than their traditional R&E style. The last big factor I wanted to bring up here was the prior track record of Majid Jordan being somewhat reclusive in the way that they collaborate. This is more so brought on by their staunch views on collaboration and perhaps previous experiences of working with other artists and having opposing views of what a collaboration should be. To them, collaboration on a record is co-painting art. All parties should be fully invested in seeing it through and have a genuine interest in its final product. But it's possible that in the past, they've worked with people who just want to get paid for having a verse. This sort of selfless collaboration and disassociation from their work is apparent in a handful of songs that they have features on. The ones that come to mind are One I Want with Party Next Door from The Space Between, and Stars Align with Drake on this project. In both of these songs, we hear Majid take a back seat and let the other artists take the majority of the lyrics, including hooks and choruses. He doesn't have the artistic ego to stamp his presence on a record, and instead, the duo just seek to create the best piece of art that they can. I bring this up because it's been noted by them that over these few years, in the build-up to Wildest Dreams and the years before it, they've really opened up their doors collaboratively, working with up-and-coming producers like Cos to somebody more established like along with a handful of other artists and writers too. This is particularly relevant because I think in their attempts to grow in the industry, they've branched out and developed their collaborative resume by networking with others and taking in advice. But it's a significant difference from the way they worked back in their college dorm or even when they were surrounded by OVO affiliates who were people they trusted and became family with. For a duo that has stood the test of time and built a great creative partnership by working off one another and also letting their ideas and the music come naturally and authentically, this would have been a completely different experience for them to navigate through that both had its benefits and its downsides. As a result of these factors, this album sounds very lively and upbeat, featuring a host of feel-good anthems that's very unique to the rest of Majid Jordan's catalogue, that places it in a completely new world with motifs of Jordan's trademark production and Majid's candid writing. Spliced within this sweeping theme are slower songs that have a relaxing warmth to them and that could be confused for a lullaby. This speaks to the previously unseen variety that they can offer, maybe barring Afterhours, but it doesn't stop with those tracks. We also hear a new side of the duo that features more directly sensual and suggestive tracks. These creative innovations in their work and style define this album as an attempt at something new, a continued exploration of themselves as artists and people, and ultimately, the next step on the journey of their wildest dreams. Before they were signed to OVO Sound and known as Majid Jordan, the duo briefly went by the alias Good People, as an homage to Jordan's parents who fostered their musical pursuits at the time. Around 12 years after that, and a decade removed from that name, the duo made a return to their familiar roots and a creative process that first landed them that email from 40 and allowed them to dream their wildest dreams. Coming off the back of Wildest Dreams and flirting with a mainstream and pop-inspired sound, the duo immediately retraced their steps, leaving us not entirely sure if they deemed Wildest Dreams a success or not. While it birthed one of their most popular solo songs ever in Waves of Blue, perhaps their sudden retraction from that sound lets us know all we need to. Sonically, in what is very reminiscent of Afterhours and its rawness and authenticity, Good People is the quintessential return to the beginning for a musical duo that has experienced their journey as a pair and as friends. As much as this album is a signal of their return, a tribute to their roots, and a hint of their future, it's also a reminder and a recall of their creative partnership that started it all for them. I referenced that Wildest Dreams marked a significant period of collaboration for them, and this was a learning experience for them. I think more than anything, it revealed to them that the way they want to make music is together, in a natural and authentic way that comes from genuine conversation and not studio sessions. So that's what this album was, a chance for the pair to work like old times, make the music they truly want to make, share, and that resonates with them. In a recent interview, they talked about how this project was a return to form in who they are as people, why they do what they do, and why they create what they create. As a byproduct of these things, they felt some Afterhours nostalgia as they worked on this. For one reason or another, something over the past few years led them astray, and this album was their chance to realign themselves as the artists they want to be. It should be noted that this nostalgia is supposed to be more of a spiritual and physical return to the working relationship and creative process of their partnership at the time, rather than making something that sounded similar. Although I think there's an inevitable and subconscious overlap in the sound that's only altered by years of experience. More powerfully, Jordan said that they're going back to taking a leap of faith and making music without having to define it. Wildest Dreams took their creative process down a path where Majid and Jordan weren't even in the same room coming up with ideas together anymore. The addition of more collaborations and ideas to consider stopped them from being able to work like they used to, and this project brought them closer together physically, being in the same room together and making their art from scratch. If you're asking what this creative process looks like, they simply let the music play, sat next to each other, Majid with a microphone and Jordan on a keyboard, just coming up with ideas on the fly. There's no premeditated, hey, I want to make something that sounds exactly like this. It's built on feelings and intuition that usually stem from an unrelated conversation about life or a particular situation, and something like that might inspire a sound or form an idea that they can run with. The larger you grow as an artist, your team grows accordingly, and this means there can often be opinions aired that steer a creative vision off track, and all of a sudden you're making a track that's lost its meaning and chasing numbers. I do want to talk about the particular sonic elements and the Good People aesthetic that the album presents, which is not entirely unique, but for me, embraced and most explicitly expressed in this project. Majid Jordan have always been very visual in their approach to making music. It's something that they've talked about and seem very interested in pursuing. The idea of soundscapes and creating living worlds within music that immediately places you somewhere when you hear it is an undeniable thing. Majid Jordan chase this and thrive in doing this, whether it's the space between late night drive or placing you on the precipice of an endless ocean, feet in the sand as the sun sets and small waves cascade into the seamless blue in front of you as portrayed here in Good People. The laid-back, atmospheric vibe, partnered with Majid's dreamy and waning vocals, place you in this blissful dreamland that I can only envision being Majid's youth in Bahrain, looking out into the waves of blue and the ocean that surrounds him. This sort of raw authenticity was slightly absent from Wildest Dreams in comparison, and when you consider that this project was solely created by these two, it presents a clearly identifiable style that they resonate with and feel comfortable going to and visually creating. Good People is a reminder to themselves and their listeners of who they truly are. A musical duo that have established a career and released art for over a decade built off the back of their friendship. I think it's very telling that when asked what they're most proud of, they immediately talk about their friendship and the fact that after all this time, it's in a great place and only continues to grow. Majid Jordan have had an unexpected journey through the music industry. From unsure beginnings, it all began with a friendship and a passion for creating art through sound and visuals. Looking back to Afterhours, this was made before they were signed and before they were making music after work hours. It was a passion that they squeezed in when time allowed through a busy university life. A place like this was the result of their immediate entry into the thick of the music industry, courtesy of Hold On We're Going Home and the brand new life and place it took them to. From here, Majid Jordan went into the space between, where they changed from a new act to emerging artists to people on the cusp of their wildest dreams. And despite all this, they felt a need to return to their roots as good people. If we're using this video to speculate and hypothesize what the future of Majid Jordan sounds like, I think we're looking at an extension of Good People and that return to their traditional dream funk R&E sound that shaped their first few projects. The past 5 years or so have given them time to think about where they want to take their artistry, and it seems that the answer was back where it started, but with the lessons they've learned and the experience they've gained along the way.